Hi there, it's Tracy Kiernan from stepbysteppainting.net, and in this painting tutorial video I'm going to show you how to paint this fall gnome. I am doing this on a 12-inch by 16-inch canvas, and I am going to start with two colors. So the Cobalt Blue and Titanium White are the two colors on my palette. I'm also going to use a 3/4 inch wash brush. So dip your brush in the water, pat it dry, and load it with the blue and the white, about equal amounts. You're going to paint all up and down strokes using the full width of the brush. We're going to allow the blue and the white to blend together to create sort of a blend of the two colors, and we're basically going to do this to the entire canvas. So a couple tips when doing this background painting technique. If you want your paint to flow a little bit better, dip your brush in some more water, and not too much water. You don't want it to be dripping wet, but a little bit of water will help the paint to flow a little bit better. Also, if you want your background to be a lighter color, you would use more white. If you like a darker blue, you would use more blue and not so much white. I'm using a lot more white than blue in this, so I'm dipping my brush in a lot of white and maybe just kind of slightly dipping it in the blue because the blue is darker and it kind of spreads really fast. I was going for kind of a light to medium blue background. But like I said, if you want to kind of adjust the darkness, it just depends on how much blue you add to the brush. And then you want to get it so it's not blended all the way, so it's not going to turn into a solid color. You're just kind of letting it look streaky and unblended. Just make sure that all your canvas spots are filled up, and also at this point you can decide to paint the sides of the canvas with those colors as well. Next, you need to let this background dry. Mine dried really fast because it was a pretty thin layer of paint that I applied to the canvas. But if you want to speed up the drying process, use a hair dryer. And then we're going to use my Traceable. So I have this Traceable for free on my website, and it's printed so it'll fit perfectly on this 12 by 16 inch canvas. So you're going to print it out, and it's going to come out on 3 sheets of just regular size computer paper. And we're going to cut, and I just cut on the dotted lines towards the bottom just so I can tape them together. I didn't cut on all the dotted lines all the way around him, but you can if you want to do that. And then I just added a piece of tape so that he's all put together. Then I'm using a sheet of graphite paper, and I'm placing that underneath the gnome. If you do not have graphite paper, you can also take your pencil and apply pencil to the back of the lines of the traceable, and then turning it over and tracing it, so it will transfer that way as well. I'm using a ballpoint pen to trace, but you can use any writing utensil to do this. As long as it's something that will apply pressure to the drawing, it will allow the graphite paper to trace whatever it is you're trying to trace. Okay, so we're gonna jump right into painting the gnome, and this is a super easy painting. Once you get it all traced out, it's kind of like you're just filling in the shapes and stuff, but we're gonna actually do a little bit of color mixing into this painting, so it'll be kind of fun. Starting with his robe. His robe is this sort of dark olive green color, and I made that color by mixing light olive green with deep green permanent, and this is Naphthol Crimson, just a little bit of red, and that little bit of red is going to give it that sort of warm green color. And so you see me mixing that on my palette, and the first round over here was a little bit too dark, so I'm grabbing a whole bunch more of that light olive green, and now we have this really pretty warm kind of olive green color. And so I guess you could say it's about 4 parts olive green, 2 parts deep green permanent, maybe a half part red. You don't need a lot of red at all, just a teeny tiny bit of red added to that green. And so I'm using my number 4 round brush, and I'm just going to paint the robe in. So the sleeves, I'm going to go around his beard, and I'm going to do the bottom part of the robe, and basically just fill it all in. So when I'm filling in shapes, I like to contour my strokes. That means that the direction of your strokes are going in the direction of the shape that you're filling in. So if it's curved, I'm going to have my strokes go in a curved direction as well, and it's going to go around the corner and kind of curve around. And going to fill it all in. So this is the first coat. There will be another coat on there later, so it should be pretty solid and opaque. And filling in his other sleeve as well. When you're done with the robe, well, at least this is the order that I went in. I painted his shoes next. So I did burnt umber for the shoes and rinsed off my brush. I did just a solid oval shape for the shoes. So just fill it in, again, contouring the strokes so they're going in a circular direction with that burnt umber. We are going to do wet on wet blending here. So when you're done filling the shoes in, don't walk away just yet. You want to load your palette with a tiny bit of titanium white. Don't rinse that brown off your brush. In fact, just wipe it off so that there's excess, just a little brown still left on your brush. But load the tip of your brush with the white and paint the upper left part of the shoe going in a curved sort of formation. And when you paint over that brown, it'll sort of blend. Now, if you're painting it and it's turning solid white, it means that there's way too much white on your brush and not enough brown. So wipe the brush off, add a tiny bit of brown and some white, and try it again. Or you could blend, you could mix brown and white on your palette to make a light brown, and then use that light brown to sort of make your highlight of the shoe. But that's all it is just a brighter area, the upper left part of the gnome's shoes. Next, I did the nose and the hands, and I used the 2 colors, Light Portrait Pink and Unbleached Titanium for this, about equal amounts I mixed together, and then with my round brush I painted the nose. This is the first coat. I go back later in the painting and do a little bit of shadowing to it, but for now it's just the solid coat of that color, and then as well do the hands too. After I did the hands, I did the beard. The beard was actually a lot of fun. It looks like it would be hard, but actually it's not. I used the 2 colors, black and white, so Mars Black, Titanium White. You'll need a lot more white than the black to make a gray. And so I'm going to still use my number 4 round brush, and I'm going to kind of swirl the 2 colors together on the palette. So I just mixed probably about 4 parts white, 1 part black to make sort of a medium gray, and I call it swirled together because I mixed the 2 on the palette, but I didn't mix it all the way because when I paint this beard, I kind of want this color variation to happen. I'm not doing texture on purpose right now, but I am making sure that the direction that I'm painting in is that sort of contouring thing that I mentioned earlier. So here we want it to curve and go in the direction of the beard. So down here it's kind of curving and going to a point, and then it's curving back around. And then if you're painting in the middle, maybe it's going straight up and down instead of curved. And so that's kind of what we want to do here. But also we want to make a coat, our first coat to be this sort of medium brown color. And so, I mean, basically we just want to make sure we're covering up all the blue and we're defining this beard shape, and we'll go back and add more texture later. But when I go to reload my brush, I may grab different amounts of white. I may grab a little bit more black in there just to get that color variation. And again, I'm using my round brush and I'm kind of curving my stroke and defining that shape, kind of going outwards over here on the right, and making sure that you go around the nose and under the hat. So when you do go around the nose, you can have your stroke kind of go this way instead of going straight up and down, because that would drive me crazy too. But if you outline the nose shape and then go back, and then you could do the up and down thing, that would work a lot easier. And so just cover it all up, and like I said, later on we'll go back in there and add some more texture to it, but for now we're just going for that medium gray look with the black and the white kind of mixing together and adding a little bit of texture in there, but not really purposeful texture right now. Okay, so that's our first coat of the beard, and we're just going to let that dry before we do anything else to it. And we're just going to move on, and I'm going to do the hat next. So I had a lot of fun with this hat. When I was designing this painting, I was obsessing over the hat. Like, I just could not figure out what sort of color I wanted the hat to be. I knew it was supposed to be a fall painting. So I went with a multicolor striped hat. And so this bottom part is going to be kind of a thick stripe. This is burnt umber, and I'm still using my number 4 round brush. And I watered it down slightly just to get it to flow a little bit here. But I'm pretty much sort of defining this bottom part of the hat. So that's the part that's covering, going above the nose. So that kind of wavy line that goes above the nose and above the beard right there, covering his eyes. And so we wanted to find that part with the brown. And then kind of it goes sort of outwards a little bit. And again, adding that teeny bit of water in there is going to allow it to flow a little bit better, because I'm kind of defining my shape here. So I want my paint to flow very well while I'm able to define that shape. And so the thickness of the hat is probably about 3/4 of an inch high, or not the hat, but the brown part of the hat. And so maybe like 2 fingers high. And then fill that in solid brown. So that is our brown, and that's the only brown that shows up in the hat. And if you want, you can customize your colors. That's perfectly fine. Or if you want to do a solid color hat, you can do that as well. And just kind of make sure that the edges on over here on the left and right kind of look like they're wrapped around the head. And so because this is a striped hat, we're going to add our stripes. And I guess I didn't add stripes for you in the Traceable, so we're going to draw them. This is a pencil. And so basically I'm going to draw my stripes, but they have to kind of go curved because of the way the hat is. It's kind of a flowy hat, and so our stripes aren't going to be horizontal, they're going to be kind of wavy. So I'm going to draw my stripes, and they're relatively the same amount of distance apart, probably about a little less than 3/4 of an inch apart. It doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be even. In fact, you can have some stripes be closer together, some stripes be further apart. And so as you're going up the hat and around the curve, your stripes are going to curve as well. And then mine went to kind of a point, and there's not smaller stripes there at the point. And then color the stripes in. So I find it easiest to do one color at a time. So this first color I'm using to color my stripe in is the same color as his robe. So it's that olive, that warm olive green color that we made in the beginning. So I'm going to paint several stripes starting with the tip of his hat. That's going to be that color. And then I'm going to paint some stripes in. And still the number 4 round brush. I use this brush for the majority of this painting actually. And also make sure that the direction of your strokes are contouring. So if your stripe is curving, your strokes should be curving as well. And then another thing you can do, and I mentioned this in the blog post where I typed up the directions for this painting. If you add a little bit of white to your brush like this, so just add the tip of your brush in white and paint it in. So that'll give you some fun color variation, so it's not all solid color, and it sort of blends itself on the canvas. So that's kind of fun. We're not really trying to make it look like a wrinkle and that's where the highlight is. I'm not even thinking about that right now. So just letting that white sort of give us some fun variation in the color. And so that's what I'm doing there. I do want to make sure that since this stripe is kind of curved, that my strokes are going curved. So that's just going to make your hat naturally look not realistic, but kind of fun. Like there's movement in the hat with the white. And so my next color I'm going to use is Naphthol Crimson. So just that solid color, and I'm going to do that white thing again. So adding the teeny bit of white in there, too much white and it's going to turn pink, unless you want it to be pink, but just the teeny bit of white in there is going to give it that pretty sort of variation of color. And again, make your strokes kind of curve so that it all kind of goes in that flowy direction with the hat. And this one ended up being lighter because I added way more white to my brush there, but that's okay. So if you're working on all that same color, not all the stripes don't have to all be the same tint of red. They can be varied. Some can be lighter, some can be darker. And then I went on to Cad Orange Hue. Did not even rinse my brush. So this is, I guess it's orange mixed with a little bit of red mixed with white, and it makes this really pretty bright coral looking color. So that's what I did here. And you can actually have fun with this. You can mix colors and make new colors and think of different other color combinations. You can match your fall decor. So if you have things in your house that are a certain color and you want this to match those items, you could grab those colors and add those colors into your hat. And so then I'm going to do white, and so this, I didn't want it to be a solid bright white, so mixing a little bit of that previous orange color into it is going to give it that off-white look that I was kind of going for. And so that's going to kind of make it sort of blend into the other fall colors. So it's a fall white color. And then filling in the rest of the stripes. And I'm also not really doing a pattern. So I'm not trying to do white, red, green, orange, white, red. So it's kind of random here and not purposely making any sort of pattern here. In fact, I am going to go back and add some different colors into some of those other stripes above, some colors that I've used already, maybe add some more green or red in there. And I'm also going to go silent here while I finish this step. So it's pretty self-explanatory, super fun. Just kind of have fun mixing your colors and painting your stripes and kind of zone out to it. And then I will let you know what the next step is after this. Okay, I'm gonna do a dry brush thing to my hat, and basically that means that I'm gonna load white to the tip of my brush. I'm gonna wipe it off with the paper towel, and I'm gonna do this sort of stroke thing on the left side of the hat, just the left side. It's gonna allow the hat to have some purposeful highlight to it, kind of give it a little bit more character. And dry brush means there's like no water on my brush. There's not a lot of paint on my brush. It's very dry and scratchy, and that's kind of the point. We want it to be very light. If this was solid white, it would not create this effect that's happening here. It would be bright and it would be taking over. But because there's only a teeny tiny bit of white on the tip of my brush, it's allowing it to create this effect here. So just on the left side of the hat, there's some colors on it that's not dry and it's kind of running into it, but that's okay. But loading it with the white, kind of wiping it off with the paper towel, or dragging it on your palette. This one I got kind of messed it up a little bit there, so I kind of added a little bit more red in there, but wiping it off on your paper towel and just kind of dragging from left to right, not going all the way across, just on the left side, and creating that sort of highlight look on the hat. So I'm going to do this all throughout. I did this on the brown part of the stripe. I guess the video didn't show that part, but if you look on the brown part, there's like a sort of a line that kind of curves at the bottom. I'll kind of go over it again. But right here, my line kind of switches over here where that curve is to the left part of that point. And then see that part of the brown part of the hat. It's just a line that kind of curves up and around. And so that's it for the hat. And we're going to move on to the pumpkin. And pumpkin's super easy. I'm going to start with the stem. And I'm going to use both brown and black, so mixing the brown and black together to make a really dark brown, using my number 4 round brush again, and I'm going to paint the stem in, so it's just kind of curving around, and it goes behind his hand. He's holding that pumpkin by the stem, and it kind of curves around. And so there's my pumpkin stem. And then we're going to do the pumpkin. So the pumpkin was done with Cadmium Orange Hue and Titanium White. So load your brush with just the orange to start with, and we're going to pick one bump to paint. So it's a big chunk of orange that I grabbed there. But I'm going to just, when I do the pumpkins, I do one bump at a time. So that's, the pumpkin's already drawn in for you. So just paint that in solid orange. And then I'm stroking, doing the contour thing again, so stroking, going curved. And then for the next pumpkin bump, I'm going to grab a little bit of white, kind of mix it on my palette so that it turns into a light orange. And I'm going to paint the next pumpkin bump, the one that's in the middle. So I'm just painting that sort of oval shape, and it turned into a lighter orange. It's going to stand out from the first orange bump that I painted, because it's simply just a different tint of orange. So then for the next pumpkin bump, maybe I'll grab a little bit more orange this time so it doesn't have as much white into it. And this one's a different tint of orange as well. So each of these pumpkin bumps is going to be a kind of a different combination of white and orange. So maybe my next pumpkin bump, maybe this one will be lighter. And so I'm just going to paint, again, stroking from the top to the bottom, using, this is still the number 4 round brush. And then when my strokes don't have to blend all the way. So if you want that streaky sort of look in there, that's how you get that sort of texture thing going on with the pumpkin. And then doing the next one, so maybe this one has some white on it so it stands out from the orange. So again, you want to stroke from the top to the bottom, going in a curved direction, and then you want to do, I'm just adding a little bit more orange in there so it doesn't look like it's a striped pumpkin. And then we got the bump in the back. as well. And then, so we're going to do the grass next. And I did this grass in layers. I used the number 4 round brush. And right now I'm mixing a little bit of that olive green with the green deep permanent and a teeny bit of water. So you want to get this to be a little bit flowy by adding a teeny bit of water in there, because if it's dry, it's not really going to create this sort of effect. And I'm going to start by his shoes, and I'm just going to do the tip of my brush, and I'm kind of just dragging from the bottom and sort of angling upwards. So this is under the shoe, so he's standing on the grass. It's smushed in this area, so the blades are going to be shorter, but then there's going to be blades that are sort of angling outwards on the side of his shoes. So the grass is going to kind of angle the opposite direction. And then when we get further out towards the edges of the canvas, we can have our grass blades be taller, and also we can angle our grass blades in different directions. Another thing that's happening with my grass blade strokes here is the fact that my pressure, so I start from the bottom and I stroke upwards. When you stroke upwards, you want to let go of the pressure of the brush. So you're pressing a little bit hard at first, but when you let go of the pressure, kind of wisp it away, your grass blade will kind of dry out from the paint, but also allow the grass blade to go to more of a point. And so you don't have to have each of your grass blades be perfectly pointy, but you want to kind of practice getting that pressure of the brush, starting out a little bit hard and then letting go of the brush so that it gets kind of thinner. And you can create some variations. You can have some thinner strokes in there just by holding the brush a lot more lightly with your hand. That'll create the thinner stroke. And you want to make sure you're really just using the tip of your brush, of that round brush. And then I'm just going in here with that same color. I haven't changed colors yet. Just adding some taller grass blades and just kind of making sure I have some different variety of grass going in different directions, different angles. I will go back over, I did 3 layers of grass. So when this dries, I'm going to go back and do a lighter layer, and then when that lighter layer dries, I'll go back and do an even lighter layer, and that's going to create the pretty grass effect. So I'm going to do a second coat of the nose next. So rinse the green off your brush, and we're going to go back to our color, that pink color that we made with the portrait pink and the unbleached titanium. So you may need to freshen those 2 colors if they're dry, and just go back and add a second coat to the nose and the hands. That just verifies that it's nice and solid. We want to kind of finalize that coat of paint. But I want to add some shadowing in here. So I went in and added a little bit of brown, and I'm going to let that brown kind of blend in with that pinkish color, wet on wet blending, so it's a tiny bit of brown. And then I'm going to go back and add some white. So rinse the brown off your brush, then add the white, and you do the highlight thing on the upper left part of the nose with just the white. One thing I was going to say about the brown is if your brown ended up being too dark, you can always go in and mix brown with a little bit of that pink color, so it's already pre-mixed, and then you can go back and you can do that shadow color. So for me, I like blending colors on the canvas, but sometimes if that doesn't really work for you, you can always blend it on the palette first and then go ahead and apply it to the canvas. And then we're going to do this texture to the beard. So this was so much fun, this part right here, because it really brings out the character of the beard. It adds the texture to it. So this is white. My brush is completely rinsed off. This is just the white, kind of dry brush style too. I didn't really water it down or anything. But I'm taking the white and I'm adding some texture in there. I'm not trying to color the whole beard white. I'm just painting strokes, and they're kind of curved and kind of going in the direction of the beard. And so just kind of these are really fast strokes, so that's kind of the point. So super fast strokes, kind of curving and going in the flowy direction, but fast is the key here to get that sort of textured look. Because I guess if you go too slow, you're not going to get that sort of wispy line that you want. Next, I switched brushes here. So this is a 5-0 round brush, and I'm going to use Mars Black. So I'm going to add some more texture to the beard, but with black this time. And we want that really fine line, which is why I switched to that smaller brush. And I'm going to do the same thing. I can go over my white lines, but I'm not going to go over all my white lines. I'm just going to add a few strokes of that black. Just kind of be careful not to overdo it on the black, I guess. I guess we're going for that salt and pepper look here with the black and the white. But just a few strokes in there. Again, it adds to that sort of texture, character of the beard. And with that fine, using that fine line brush is going to add this sort of another dimension to it because it's a thinner line. And I even went in there with a little bit more white in there just to add some more gray fine lines. You don't have to do that, but I had a lot of fun with this texture. So it was hard to stop myself from overdoing it. Okay. So now that we have our fine lined brush in our hand, we're going to go in there back to the pumpkin here with the black. And I'm just going to I'm not going to outline all of my bump, just the top part of it. Gives it a little bit of contrast at the top, maybe a little bit of shadowing at the top, but just outlining the top part of the bumps. And you can also use that tiny brush to kind of define your stem line a little bit better if you wanted to do that. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just making sure my stem is all filled in, and I wanted it to kind of curve a little bit more. Grabbing a little bit of white there, add a tiny highlight to the left part, and some more highlights on the pumpkin, but didn't want to overdo it with the shiny pumpkin look. Just a few little white marks on the left. And so I'm going to rinse this off. I'm going to go back to my number 4 round brush and white. So I'm going to paint the toadstool in, as well as the leaves. Those are all going to be painted in solid white so they'll show up nice and opaque. And so that's what I'm doing. So paint the shape of the toadstool with the white and the round brush, and then your leaves. If you want, you can get a piece of chalk or white charcoal pencil and draw those in first. I know that it might be kind of intimidating to just get your brush and paint them in, but if you are feeling kind of cautious about it, just draw it in, or even with a pencil. You can lightly draw it in with a pencil. It'll show up because the background's light enough so where the pencil would show up. But draw your leaves in with a pencil if you don't feel confident enough to just paint them in. But I'm doing that with the white in the number 4 round brush and painting them in solid white, and it's going to need to dry before we go and paint the next layer. So while we're waiting for that to dry, I decided to add some more highlights. I'm a little bit highlight happy with this gnome, but it really adds to the character of it. But I mixed some of that olive green with the white and made some strokes on the left part of his robe and just under his sleeve. And then right here at the bottom part of his robe, I made it kind of a little bit darker, kind of a little bit of a shadowy, darker area, especially right there above his shoes. So kind of adding a darker area right there above the shoes. And then I wanted to blend it back up into the rest of the robe, kind of making that olive green again. That's why I'm grabbing a little bit of red on my palette there, just to kind of blend that back up. And then, so I'm going to do the second layer of grass that I mentioned earlier now that my first layer is dry. This is the light olive green, the color light olive green. It's not mixed with anything. But if you want, you can mix it with a little bit of darker green if that's what you want. But doing the same thing with the grass, only this is a little bit lighter, so it's going to show up different. So it's going to show up lighter, and it's going to show up as kind of a different layer of grass. So I'm not trying to cover up all of the dark green grass that's already there. This is its own sort of layer. So doing the same thing, it's kind of small and smushed under the shoes, and then on the left and right side towards the edges of the canvas, the blades are higher, and I'm not really, I guess we could overlap the toadstool at this point, since that bottom part is going to be white anyway. So if you wanted to do that, that's fine. And then when your leaves are dry, you can go ahead and paint them in. So I used the orange. Actually, I'm going to do the toadstool first. So I used the Naphthol Crimson for that. So painting that in solid red just at the top. This is the number 4 round brush. And then, of course, that's going to have to dry again so that I can do the dots. And then the leaves, I also did the Naphthol Crimson, but I also did some variation of colors. So I grabbed a little bit of orange in some areas so that it turned into like a reddish orange. You could even grab some brown and add some brown to your leaves too. These are sort of, if you saw my owl painting that I did, I guess a week before this one, same concept with the leaves falling, same sort of thing with the brown and the red and the orange, but I didn't do brown in this one. I didn't add brown in these leaves, but if you wanted to add brown, you can. And then for the stems of the leaves, this is the 5-0 round brush, so the really tiny brush so you can get the stem in there. It's a very thin stroke. You don't want to use a thick brush for that. You want to use a tiny brush for that. Start at the base of the stem, make like a dot, and then do your line so it kind of curves. So kind of a dot for the base of the stem for this 3-pronged leaf. And then it's going to kind of branch out. So 3 stems that branch out and meet to the dot. And then I'm not going to get really detailed and do veins in the leaves. So you can just kind of do a line with no veins. But if you wanted to get detailed and do that, that's fine. You could do that. My leaves also have this swirly thing going on. I'll show you. So I rinsed my brush off and grabbed the white, and with this very, very fine line, I'm going to do some spirals. It's like the leaves are kind of flying everywhere. Adds to the whimsical effect of this painting. And so I did that. And then, if your toadstool is dry, you can add your spots. And even if it's not dried all the way, it might actually look kind of cool if that red and white sort of mixed together to make a lighter pink color for the spots, if that's the look you're going for. And then with this 5-0 round brush, I'm going to add my 3rd layer of grass. So this is a light olive green with a little bit of white, so it's a brighter green and a finer blade because I'm using that 5-0 round brush this time. So it's kind of the same concept of adding more grass blades, but going in sort of different directions, angled differently, but still the same technique. And because this is a really fine brush, it's going to create, like I said, a finer blade of grass and create that final layer of grass in this painting. And that is also the final step in this painting. So this painting tutorial is coming to its conclusion. I am going to go ahead and sign my name over here along the toadstool using that 5-0 round brush and black to sign my name. But that's it. This is the conclusion of how to paint an adorable fall gnome painting. Thanks for watching.